Today, we are undertaking a pretty specific mission, actually. We're tearing apart the foundational story of Spanx founder Sara Blakely.
Right.
But here's the thing. The critical limitation we're setting for ourselves. We are completely ignoring the eventual multi-billion-dollar empire.
Yeah, forget the celebrity status, the magazine covers, all that.
Exactly.
Our goal today is really to dive deep into the raw, kind of gritty, 7 years of struggle and obscurity before all the massive success hit. So this isn't really a look back at a great company. It's more like we're extracting the entrepreneurial blueprint, the one used by this relentless outsider.
Right. We're hunting for the tactics, the psychological insights that let her create this whole thing from basically nothing.
And while keeping 100% ownership, which is key.
Oh, absolutely key. So for you, the listener, think of this deep dive as maybe a shortcut, a way to understand how that foundational knowledge, especially the kind you get through rejection, through failure, how that translates into huge self-controlled business success.
Yeah, we're digging into sources focused right on that early journey. We're talking everything from her career selling fax machines door to door.
Which sounds miserable.
Oh, totally. All the way through the secrets behind her, like grassroots marketing, and of course that life-altering Oprah moment.
Okay, so we've got, two main threads to pull on here?
Yeah.
And they seem pretty intertwined.
Definitely. First, there's the psychological conditioning, how she managed to just absorb endless rejection and somehow turn it into fuel. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
And second, the tactical side, just how incredibly resourceful she was, scaling a product company, needing manufacturing, distribution without ever taking outside investment.
Which today, in this VC-dominated world,
it's almost unheard of. That kind of autonomy, that's the ultimate power move, really.
the whole story, it just fundamentally redefines what we think of as a good idea, doesn't it? Or even a successful professional background.
Totally. An idea is only as good as the passion you throw at it.
And the background. Well, her big professional success seems to have sprung directly from surviving professional misery.
Exactly. Okay, so let's unpack this journey. Let's start way back. The pregame, before Spanx was even a glimmer.
Okay, so the story doesn't kick off with some brilliant flash of insight, not at all. It actually starts with, professional defeat.
Right. So Blakely graduates from Florida State, degree in communications, but her sights were set higher. She wanted to be a lawyer.
Ambitious goal.
Yeah, but she hit a wall. She apparently scored poorly on the LSAT, the big law school admission test, and not just once.
Oh, wow.
Multiple times. It was like a complete professional implosion for her dream right then.
Okay, so that initial failure, that's got to be crucial, right? Because it immediately connects to that lesson her father apparently taught her.
Absolutely. It's like life handed her the exact scenario her dad prepared her for. She wanted law, worked for it, failed to get it. End of story for that path.
But what did she do? Just give up?
Well, she felt defeated, sure. But then she took what you might call the ultimate palate cleanser job. A really brief, 3-month stint working at Walt Disney World.
Ah, good.
Just total professional limbo, But then came the real test, the 7-year-long crucible.
Which was selling fax machines door to door.
Bingo.
Okay, let's spend some real time on this. Because this isn't just some random detail in her bio, right? This sounds like her real master's degree, the one in resilience she never actually signed up for.
That's a great way to put it. For 7 incredibly grueling years, she sold office supply equipment door to door.
The sources really paint a picture of this work, don't they? Physically draining, emotionally just brutal, defined by constant, relentless rejection, often right to her face.
Yeah, think about the mental stamina you'd need for that. This wasn't email, cold calling. This was in person.
Right, yeah.
Walking into businesses, interrupting people's days, absorbing just immediate skepticism, negativity. It sounds awful.
The odds in that kind of sales are terrible, aren't they? Like for every 100 doors you knock on.
Maybe 5 pitches. Maybe 1 sale if you're lucky. She was basically forced to develop this incredibly thick skin, not just for the no, but for the humiliation of interrupting someone just to sell them something they probably don't even think they need.
But here's the twist. She actually got good at it. Despite how much it seemed she hated it.
Yeah, surprisingly effective. By the time she was 25, she'd actually been promoted to national sales trainer. So she could do the job.
Okay.
But the emotional cost was apparently immense. The sources talk about this really vividly. She would sometimes have to just hide in her car between calls.
Seriously?
Yeah, weeping. Not because she'd just been rejected, but out of the raw fear of facing the next potential slam door, the next no.
Wow. That level of emotional wear and tear, day after day, year after year.
Yeah.
That has to fundamentally change your relationship with hearing the word no.
And that, right there, that is the conditioning. The ability to withstand that 7-year rejection marathon wasn't some accident. It wasn't just grit she developed on the fly.
It was learned.
It was a deeply ingrained system, cultivated way before she ever picked up a fax machine catalog. Which brings us to her father's failure lesson. We absolutely have to talk about this because this piece of psychological pre-work, it might be the most powerful nugget in the whole story.
Yeah, this is the part that always gets me. It's like the total opposite of how most people think about parenting or even professional coaching today.
Right. So her father had this regular ritual at the dinner table. He'd ask Sara and her brother, point blank, "What did you fail at this week?"
Not what did you succeed at?
Nope. What did you fail at? And here's the kicker. If they didn't have anything to report, if they'd had a week with no setbacks, no mistakes, no, professional embarrassments,
He wasn't happy.
he'd express genuine disappointment. Can you imagine that? You, the listener, coming home, and your parent is upset, not because you struck out in the game, but because you didn't even try to swing the bat.
It's a staggering inversion of typical societal values. We teach kids, we train employees, achieve success, avoid failure at all costs.
Exactly. Her father, though, he basically mandated the pursuit of activities where failure was a pretty high probability.
So it completely reframed failure for her.
Fundamentally, the real failure wasn't the outcome. It wasn't bombing the LSAT or getting a door slammed in your face selling fax machines or even, later, losing your $5,000 savings on a product idea.
The only failure.
The only failure that actually disappointed her father was not trying, staying put, choosing the easy path, the path of least resistance.
So if you try something hard, like cold calling 50 businesses, and you fail 49 times,
you succeeded because you learned something, you gained experience, you lived up to the family mandate, basically.
but if you just stayed home, did nothing.
You failed twice over. You failed to try and you failed to learn.
Okay, so that conditioning acted like a psychological shield for her later on.
Immensely powerful shield, yeah. It protected her once she actually started her own entrepreneurial journey with Spanx because she was facing rejection constantly from industry vets, manufacturers, buyers, you name it.
But she didn't internalize it the same way most people would.
Exactly. Because of this framework, she could see every no as just data, just a necessary step in the process, not some final emotional judgment on her worth or on her idea's worth.
It gave her the emotional capital, maybe, the ability to absorb punishment.
Precisely. Which is exactly what every early-stage bootstrapped company absolutely needs to survive.
Yeah.
That resilience.
That's the key connection, isn't it? If she hadn't endured 7 years selling fax machines, if she hadn't been psychologically primed to almost seek failure as a measure of effort.
Yeah, that first rejection from a hosiery mill, it probably would have been the end of the Spanx story right there.
So the crucible of character was complete. She had the shield. Okay, no. Where did she find the sword? The actual idea?
The sword, as you put it, was found in a moment of just sheer personal annoyance. This was back in 1998, which brings us to the famous aha moment.
And it wasn't some grand market analysis report, right?
Not at all. It was a deeply personal, incredibly relatable, almost first world frustration, which, as it turns out, is often the best incubator for mass market innovation.
Okay, so set the scene. She was getting ready for a party.
Yep, wanted to wear these form-fitting, cream-colored pants she had.
Uh-oh. I think I know where this is going.
Exactly. She ran into that trifecta of consumer pain points, visible panty lines, bulky seams from traditional shapewear, and the shoe problem.
The open-toed shoe problem.
Yeah.
Because standard control-top pantyhose covered the foot.
Right. So if you wanted to wear sandals or open-toed shoes, you were kind of stuck.
Yeah.
If you cut off regular pantyhose, the seams were often thick, the material wasn't right, and the whole thing was just designed for invisibility under clothes, not necessarily comfort or versatility with footwear.
So her solution was pretty low-tech.
Incredibly visceral and low-tech. She just took a pair of scissors and cut the feet off a pair of her own control-top pantyhose.
Simple as that.
Simple as that. And it worked, at least in concept, immediately. Gave her that seamless, smooth silhouette she wanted under those tricky, light-colored pants.
Okay, but there was a snag, right?
Yeah. The material immediately started rolling up her legs. That was the obvious engineering flaw she spotted right away. But the core realization was solid.
That the simple modification solved the universal problem for potentially millions of women.
Exactly. And she recognized it instantly. This was it. This was the big idea she'd apparently been journaling about, finding a product she could sell that would genuinely make people feel better, more confident.
Okay, now, What's really strategically fascinating to me is what she did next, or rather what she didn't do.
The strategy of silence.
Yeah. She kept the entire project completely secret from everyone, friends, family, for a whole year.
For an entire year, which, especially today in our era of constant validation seeking, sharing every shower thought on social media, it's almost unheard of.
It really speaks volumes about her belief system, doesn't it? What was her reasoning?
Her rationale, according to the sources, was actually pretty brilliant. She believed that ideas are the most vulnerable in their infancy.
Makes sense.
Sharing it too early, she figured, would just open her up to discouraging feedback. Probably from well-meaning people, but people who couldn't actually help her move the project forward. They'd just poke holes.
So she protected the idea like a little seedling, kept it in the greenhouse until it was strong enough to face the elements.
Exactly. And think about the discipline that required. She's still working her full-time, high-stress fax machine job this whole time.
Right.
Dedicating every single night, every weekend to this secret project. And she spent $5,000 of her own savings over those first 2 years.
Which really isn't a lot of capital, is it? Especially when you're trying to develop a physical product that needs prototyping and stuff.
Not at all. That limited budget basically forced her into this mode of deep, exhaustive, and probably pretty lonely resourcefulness. The development of what we might call outsider expertise.
Meaning she didn't hire consultants or fancy design firms?
Nope. Couldn't afford them. She did deep, independent research herself, nights spent at her kitchen table, literally teaching herself about, the chemical composition of different fabrics.
Wow.
Researching patent law, designing trademarks. All DIY.
That bootstrapping approach, it wasn't really optional then, was it? The lack of cash forced a level of diligence that honestly probably exceeded what any paid consultant would have bothered with.
Probably true. And then when she finally did validate the prototypes, she kept the circle incredibly small and hyper-trusted. Just her mother, her grandmother, and 2 close friends.
Okay, but the way she tested it is key, isn't it?
Crucial. She didn't ask them, do you like it? Or is this a good idea? None of that validation seeking.
What did she ask?
She specifically asked for negative feedback. What's wrong with it? Where does it pinch? Where does it roll? Where is it uncomfortable?
That's the heart of real user-centric design, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't seek praise. You actively hunt for the flaws so you can fix them.
Exactly. And that rigorous, internally focused testing led her to uncover a truly staggering industry flaw, something systemic.
Which was?
She realized through her research and talking to her tiny focus group that the people traditionally designing hosiery and shapewear, mostly men, by the way,
Right.
they were using plastic inanimate molds for sizing and fit testing.
Wait, not actual women's bodies.
Not real women.
Yeah.
Standardized, static plastic molds, like mannequins, basically.
So for decades, foundation garments, things women wear right next to their skin, were being designed based on statues.
That's stunning.
It is stunning. And think about how that inherent lack of perspective must have affected the products already on the market.
It explains everything, doesn't it? The endemic discomfort, the bad fit, the pinching, the rolling, all the stuff women complained about for decades. Exactly. The designers were solving an abstract structural problem, how to shape fabric around a static form, not an intimate, dynamic, bodily one. They were likely optimizing for manufacturing efficiency on those molds, not actual user experience on a living, breathing person.
Okay, let's analyze this strategically then. Her lack of industry experience, the fact she was a total outsider with zero background in textiles or fashion, that was actually her superpower.
It absolutely was her greatest strength. She wasn't bound by the conventional wisdom, that you must use plastic molds, that hosiery has to be beige, white, or gray, that it always needs feet.
She was free.
Totally free to innovate based purely on solving a problem she felt intimately as a user. Her outsider perspective let her challenge the status quo, ignore those institutionalized design flaws that insiders probably didn't even see anymore, and just prioritize the customer experience above all else.
She wasn't just selling hosiery.
No, she was selling comfort, confidence, a feeling.
Okay, so that freedom let her develop the product concept. But the next hurdle was huge. Just a massive structural obstacle, manufacturing.
Right. She had a working prototype, something she maybe made at her kitchen table or tweaked herself, but she needed mass production.
And she's still this lone woman, no industry contacts to speak of, no real capital operating out of her apartment.
Yeah, the odds were stacked against her. So she started everything else with research, rigorous online research. She identified that most of the big hosiery mills were clustered in North Carolina.
Okay.
But this wasn't something she could solve by just firing off emails. She needed to build trust somehow, convince someone face-to-face to take a chance and make a small, custom run of a product that, frankly, most of them probably thought sounded absurd.
So she hit the road.
Yep. Took a week off from the fax machine job, burning precious vacation time, remember? Drove herself from Atlanta to North Carolina, a totally self-funded road trip to pitch her idea in person.
And how'd that go?
Universally demoralizing by all accounts. Yeah, she's meeting with these highly experienced, probably pretty traditional, mostly male representatives from hosiery mills that had been around for decades.
And they just didn't get it.
They looked at her product, this footless hose, looked at her, this outsider with no track record, and just saw zero value. The sources talk about the humiliation she was literally laughed at, dismissed out of hand. Some even hung up on her during her initial cold calls before she even got there.
Wow. Imagine driving hundreds of miles, spending your own limited savings, psyching yourself up to face down these industry giants, only to have them literally laugh in your face.
It's brutal. She must have returned home feeling pretty defeated, you'd think.
But maybe not completely broken, that fax machine training kicking in again.
Exactly. She had survived 7 years of that feeling. She knew how to internalize that kind of rejection without letting it paralyze her. But objectively, she was at a genuine roadblock. The industry had said no. She'd kind of exhausted her options.
Oh, dang.
And then, about 2 weeks after that demoralizing failed trip, the whole narrative just pivots completely. The catalytic yes. A surprise phone call from one of the mill operators she had actually pitched in person.
Okay, so what changed his mind? Did he suddenly see the market potential? Run some numbers?
Not at all. He apparently got right on the phone and admitted he still thought the idea was crazy.
Seriously?
Yeah, and he said his business partners would probably never approve it.
So, why was he calling her back then?
Because he had done the one thing an industry veteran, faced with an emotional, user-driven product he didn't understand, could do.
Right.
He tested it on the target consumer. He took the prototype home and showed it to his 3 daughters.
Ah, the actual end users.
Exactly. His daughters, who were smack in the middle of her target demographic, they immediately understood the problem she was solving. They got the visible panty line issue. They understood needing versatility with shoes.
They saw the value instantly.
Instantly. And they apparently told their father, Dad, this idea is actually brilliant. It makes sense. And they strongly encouraged him to just risk it, do a small production run just for her.
That is the pivotal moment, isn't it? And it's such a massive insight into the power of like B2C emotional connection.
Totally. The authority that finally broke that manufacturing roadblock wasn't rational. It wasn't data-driven. It wasn't some slick business plan or a lawyer.
It was just empathy.
Yeah.
Driven by real consumer validation coming from inside the operator's own family.
It proves that her intimate connection to her target customer was ultimately her most valuable asset. It overrode all the industry skepticism, all the decades of conventional wisdom.
It only took one yes.
But that yes came from authentic, personal demand, which is exactly what a bootstrapped founder needs to survive, that little crack of light.
Okay, so she finally has product coming off the line. But now the next massive hurdle, sales and distribution. How do you get it into stores?
Right. And remember, she's still operating with basically zero budget for traditional advertising or marketing. Every penny was likely tied up in that first production run and maybe travel.
So this forced her into what sounds like a masterclass in just scrappy, high-contact, totally resourceful entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. And we have to start with the legend, right? The Neiman Marcus bathroom pitch.
Okay, tell us about this. She had product, she needed distribution, and Neiman Marcus. That's like the holy grail of retail validation, especially back then.
It was the ultimate stamp of approval. So somehow she managed to secure a cold call meeting with a buyer there, which honestly was a huge win in itself.
Definitely.
But during the meeting, the standard presentation, she could apparently sense the buyer was losing interest. You know, this buyer probably gets pitched hundreds of products a year.
Couldn't visualize the benefit, maybe?
Exactly. So this is where that fax sales job training kicks back in. That desperation, that willingness to do literally whatever it takes to close the deal. She did something incredibly bold, unconventional, highly vulnerable, really. She asked the buyer to follow her to the ladies' restroom.
No way.
Yes way. Right there, in the public ladies' room of a luxury department store. She personally changed into the Spanx prototype.
She demonstrated it live.
Live. showed the buyer the seamless difference in her own silhouette right there compared to whatever uncomfortable things she'd worn in. She just stripped away all the corporate formality and made it intensely, undeniably personal.
That is audacious. High risk, high reward, though, right?
Totally. It worked. It secured the first major retail order for Spanx in 7 Neiman Marcus stores. And that broke the dam. Bloomingdale's, Saks, Bergdorf Goodman quickly followed.
She literally had to wear the proof. It wasn't an ad campaign. It was like performance art proving the consumer benefit.
That's a good way to describe it. And while she's pulling off these kinds of stunts in restrooms, she was also being incredibly capital efficient on the back end, employing some serious DIY legal and branding hacks.
Okay, like what?
Well, let's talk about the patent. Hiring a patent attorney, especially back then, to file even a provisional patent, let alone a full one, that costs tens of thousands of dollars.
Money she absolutely did not have.
Exactly. So to save those fees, she researched patent law and wrote her own patent application.
Wow. That's a huge undertaking. It's an exhausting, hyper-detailed legal process.
Immense focus required. But that massive effort wasn't just about saving cash. She then cleverly, intentionally, used the patent pending status right there on her packaging as a marketing tool.
Ah, smart. How did that help?
It served as this quick signifier of legitimacy, built consumer trust. It basically said, hey, this isn't just some gimmick I cooked up. This is a novel solution, potentially protectable by law. She turned a cost-saving necessity into a perceived asset. Clever.
Very clever. And her branding choices were pretty radical too, weren't they, compared to the rest of the industry?
Night and day. The industry standard for foundation garments back then was just depressing. Beige, white, gray packaging. Very sterile, professional, almost slightly embarrassed about itself.
And Spanx was.
She went for a playful, memorable name, Spanx. And this unconventional, really eye-catching, illustrated, bright red packaging.
Deliberate choice, obviously, to stand out in what must have been a deeply boring aisle in the department store.
Absolutely. The red communicated excitement, fun. It positioned the product not as something you have to wear reluctantly out of necessity, but more like a fun accessory that improves your look, changes the whole psychology.
And the writing on the package, the copy.
That cemented the authentic human connection. It wasn't formal or technical. It was humorous, direct lines like, don't worry, we've got your butt covered.
Okay.
It was conversational. It built this immediate, relatable bond with the customer, cut right through the stuffy formality of the established brands, and made women feel like they were kind of in on a secret.
And throughout this period, we also need to just appreciate the sheer operational hustle. Right? She was basically a one-woman show.
Totally. Logistics team, sales team, marketing department, all rolled into one person, still probably working that fax job for part of this.
Crazy. She was traveling all over the country.
Yeah, modeling her own product in stores, selling directly from little tables set up in department stores, whatever it took.
Her focus was just laser-like on moving product, getting it seen, even if it meant bending the rules a bit.
Oh, yeah. Which brings us to that fantastic anecdote about the placement hack. She noticed, quite rightly, that the hosiery section in most department stores was, like, poorly lit, hidden away in some low-traffic corner.
Makes sense.
So the sources say she was actually caught on security camera footage, physically moving her own Spanx products from that hidden hosiery section
Where?
To a much more prominent high-traffic spot right in the shoe department.
Genius. Why the shoe department?
Because women buy shoes to go with outfits, and they need Spanx to make the outfit look perfect. She knew exactly where the customer's mind was at that point of purchase. Customer journey thinking.
She was just completely hands-on, willing to risk getting yelled at by store managers, breaking policy, just prioritizing sales and customer convenience above everything.
It's pure entrepreneurial drive. So let's recap that timeline quickly. 1998, the aha moment, cutting up pantyhose. 1999, facing total rejection from Mills, then finally securing that one, yes, thanks to the daughters.
Late 1999, the Neiman Marcus bathroom pitch, getting into major retailers.
All of this, while still, for a significant part of it, holding down that demanding fax machine job. It's an incredible hustle. But she needed one final massive push, something external to really break through.
To go from this scrappy, intense hustle to something resembling, well, an empire.
Exactly. She needed mass market awareness, and she still had Basically zero budget for any kind of traditional advertising campaign.
So bootstrapping.
Totally. So her strategy for getting national attention was, again, simple, intensely personal, and relied completely on the authenticity she'd been building all along.
Okay, what did she do?
She executed what you might call a zero-budget PR masterstroke, aimed directly at the single most influential voice in American consumer culture at that time.
Oprah Winfrey.
Oprah. She didn't go through layers of publicists or corporate channels.
So how did she reach her?
Her method was incredibly simple, almost charmingly naive, but brilliant. She packaged up a beautiful gift basket filled with Spanx products, included a personal, handwritten note, explained her journey, her story selling fax machines, living in her apartment, the intimate problem the product solved for women, and she just mailed it directly to Oprah Winfrey's show.
Just sent it off into the void. That's a total Hail Mary pass, isn't it?
Complete Hail Mary. Relying entirely on the strength of her personal story and the hope that the product itself was undeniably good enough to get noticed.
And it worked.
It paid off spectacularly because Oprah apparently connected deeply with that authentic hustle. She wasn't just impressed with the product itself, which reports say she clearly was, but she was also deeply moved by the story. This young woman, bootstrapping a company from her apartment, still working a full-time job selling fax machines to fund it, it just resonated. Resonated with Oprah's own values, her audience's desire for real stories of success earned through sheer effort.
And so in the year 2000,
Oprah named Spanx one of her favorite things live on her show.
Wow. The Favorite Things episode. That was huge.
That public declaration was basically the equivalent of launching a $100 million ad campaign overnight. She famously declared on air, "I've given up panties and only wear Spanx."
I remember that. That quote went everywhere.
Everywhere. That single, authentic endorsement just changed the entire trajectory of the company, literally overnight.
Can we actually quantify that, the scale of the Oprah effect?
Yeah, we can, actually. Spanx's revenue in its first year, relying on those scrappy tactics, the bathroom pitch, etc., it topped $4 million, which is already amazing for a bootstrap company.
Incredible first year.
But the second year, the year following that Oprah feature, sales reached an astonishing $10 million.
Wow. More than doubled. Just like that.
Explosive, self-funded, authentic growth, purely fueled by product quality and word of mouth, amplified by the biggest megaphone possible.
And that sales explosion, that $10 million year, that's what finally allowed Blakely to quit the fax machine job.
Finally, yes. That marked the definitive transition. From entrepreneur in hiding, side hustling, to full-time CEO of a rapidly growing company.
But here's the really massive long-term implication, isn't it? The thing that separates the Spanx story from almost every other big startup success story we hear about today.
Absolutely. That huge influx of cash from sales, combined with the unparalleled free PR from Oprah, it allowed her to completely bypass the entire traditional startup funding route.
She never needed venture capital.
Never had to take a single penny of outside investment.
Which means?
Meaning she never had to dilute her ownership stake, never had to answer to a VC board who might push for faster growth at the expense of quality, or who maybe wouldn't understand the emotional nuances of her very user-centric product. She maintained 100% ownership of Spanx for over 2 decades.
Until the eventual sale in 2021 for billions.
Exactly. That level of capital efficiency and control, that's the ultimate strategic achievement of this whole early journey, I think. In a world where founders are constantly getting diluted through Series A, B, C rounds.
Chasing unicorns, giving up equity.
Right. Her authentic brand, combined with a product that flew off the shelves thanks to genuine demand and that Oprah boost, allowed her to build an empire entirely on her own terms. Self-funding growth through sales and profitability.
It's such a profound counter-narrative to modern startup culture, which often seems to prize raising money almost more than actually making sales.
Completely. For Spanx, the money came directly from the customers who loved the product, not from investors chasing a quick exit. And that ensured her original vision remained pure. #outro.
Okay, so if we step back now, connect all these dots we've pulled out from this deep dive into Sara Blakely's pre-success journey, what's the fundamental blueprint here? What are the lessons for success outside those traditional channels?
Well, first, I think, is the undeniable strength you can find in having an outsider perspective.
Yeah, not being bogged down by industry dogma.
Exactly. Being unbound by those conventions wasn't her liability. It was actually her greatest asset. It gave her the freedom to challenge decades of design flaws, things perpetuated by insiders who were maybe too close to the process to even see the problem anymore.
She solved the problem the user was actually having.
Right, not the problem the industry thought it was solving. That's huge.
Okay, what's second?
Second has to be that model of capital efficiency and control. Building an empire based on actual profitability and sales, not just rapid, dilutive venture capital scaling.
Which gave her total autonomy.
Total creative and financial autonomy. It ensured that the core, authentic vision of her product was never compromised by external pressures demanding faster growth, or maybe cheaper materials, or whatever else investors might push for.
Makes sense. Third point.
Third, I'd say, is just the enduring power of authenticity. Her willingness to be vulnerable, embracing the failure mandated by her father, the sheer audacity of the bathroom pitch, the humorous packaging, that personal note to Oprah.
That was her marketing.
That was her most effective marketing tool. It created this powerful, durable, emotional connection with her customers that, frankly, money just can't buy. You can't fake that.
Right. And finally,
it loops right back to the beginning, that essential mindset around failure. Her ability to just endure the sheer quantity of rejection, from the LSAT failures through the 7-year fax machine grind to all those manufacturing cold shoulders.
it all stemmed from that conditioning.
It was a direct result of being psychologically conditioned to view failure not as an ending, not as a judgment, but as learning, as the necessary cost of entry for doing anything worthwhile.
So the journey really shows us, doesn't it, that maybe the most impactful entrepreneurial skills, they aren't necessarily the ones taught in business school or the ones funded easily in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, often they're the ones honed through relentless, sometimes really painful personal hustle and fueled by just a profound, almost irrational belief in a solution that is genuinely valuable.
Which raises, I think, an important final provocative question for you, the listener, to maybe mull over after this. The best businesses, like Spanx, often start by solving a problem that's intensely personal, maybe hidden, maybe ignored by the big corporations because it's not easily quantifiable on a spreadsheet.
Right.
So the question is, what deeply personal problem are you currently solving? Maybe just for yourself in your own life right now. What annoyance, what inefficiency, what unmet need could that, with a little resourcefulness, the right mindset about failure, and maybe an outsider's fresh perspective, could that become the next globally recognized business solution?
It's possible. The path to a billion-dollar company can apparently start, quite literally, with a simple pair of scissors and an old pair of control-top pantyhose.
Something to think about.